Hello and welcome to the final part of my series of Fintech Founder Firesides, covering the various stages of the product lifecycle. In this final part, I'll be speaking to Adrian Shedden, co-founder and COO of Lumio, about the growth, which is also known as the scale or operate phase. Hey Adrian, how you doing?
Yeah, good. Thanks, Jez. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very well. So let's jump straight into it. We've had a little pre-intro about weekends and weather and whatnot. So obviously we've worked together in one of the earlier phases, but can you just give a brief intro about yourself and talk about what Lumio is all about?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Adrian, co-founder and COO of Lumio, as Jez already introduced me. So I'm responsible for keeping the lights on at Lumio, which is a personal finance optimization app that kind of connects your entire life, entire financial life. Entire life would be great, but entire financial life in one place. Identifies your lazy money. So that might be things like useless savings rates or extortionate investment fees or credit card fees and interest rates. And then suggest the next best action or product or service to fully optimize your money. We're currently at just around 10,000 customers, have closed a crowdfunding round of just over £1 million on Crowdcube in 2 weeks, which apparently is quite quick. And now looking at the growth stage, which is pretty exciting.
Nice. So before we get into some of the more nitty gritty of the growth phase, you've been through the discovery, design, build, and obviously you've launched it to public, the post beta. What's been, some of those learnings and challenges from those phases? Is there anything that stands out specifically in any of those that's like been a challenge or a massive learning?
Fundraising. Oh my God. I think any founder will probably say that fundraising is in their top, if not top learnings throughout the whole phase. So yeah, just taking those learnings on who the right investors are at the right stage, getting them, herding them together to, convince them, yeah, we're all going to invest, and actually having those conversations. So investing in those relationships just takes time, and then ultimately, getting them to sign on the dotted line and actually fund you. That's the within that one bit. There's so many learnings. So we've taken a huge amount of learnings from that, and then going into a crowdfunding raise, which is very similar in terms of investor psychology, but also very different in terms of, we ended up with about 1,200 customers, at investors from the crowd, and that is slightly different. It's the questions that you get from some of the investors are so detailed. They're really keen about investing in you and getting alignment. So there's similarities, but also differences. So there's a lot of learnings that we've taken from there.
So obviously that's one of the perils of working from home. Those interruptions. So
this goes into the bloopers, right?
Yeah. Hence the background change. I was expecting a wardrobe change as well, but obviously that's
I'm sorry. I'm just not as stylish as you, Jan.
maybe next time. Maybe next time. So like obviously you're in the growth phase now, and probably crowdfunding is part of that. But like, can you give a bit of an insight as to what your what the growth phase for you means? What things are you guys working on, either in the background, or what are you sharing on your community forums to like really push this forwards now?
Yeah, so what we're focusing on in terms of the growth phase are just really solid foundations, because we've seen so many startups, both successful and unsuccessful, go before us and see those pains that they go through. And so we're trying to take as many learnings from people who've been there and done that before. And rather than just taking the, over £1 million is a lot of money, but in startup world, that's going to just evaporate in next to no time, and it won't even get us to anywhere near what our full ambitions are. So we need to be really clever with that money. And so what we are doing is just focusing on the foundations around people, because in order to achieve those next stages of growth, we need phenomenal people that are really bought into Lumio, its vision, its purpose, its culture and values. And before we can get to any of the kind of sexy product and marketing stuff and really creating that hype, so we're really focused on people. And so what we've done in this foundational phase to really give us the best foundations for growth is focus on the executive leadership. So understanding that we as leaders of Lumio all have our strengths, but also we have our weaknesses and gaps, because none of us have ever really gone through this journey before. So we're working with a business called Rocco that help tech businesses scale from quite small to hundreds of people, and taking leadership sessions, coaching sessions with them, getting alignment to make sure that the leadership team get to the starting line together, and then can be completely aligned and then keep on going through this growth phase. Really focusing on the culture and values. So our core values, there's now 3 of them, which are championing individuality, inspiring growth, and trust and commit. And we've built that around the team. So we've had team input to get loads of alignment there. And it's been a really fascinating process to just see different points of view in terms of, even around individuality. We had, I think, about 4 hours of discussion around that. Just what that means in this world where we're continuously discovering how people like to work in different ways and like to be treated, and what their red buttons are, things that you really can't push because it's just not constructive or human. And then on top of that, the more technical aspects around organizational design. So once you've decided, okay, as a leadership team, these are the behaviors that we want to see within the team. This is how we're going to get everyone pulling in the same direction. What are the rhythms that you need to go through? How do you communicate, especially in this distributed remote world? Those are all things that we're grappling with as foundations. And so that kind of phase 1 of that work has been done. And now we're into phase 2, which is actually starting to build the hiring process to hire great people into Lumio who really buy into what we're trying to do. And that in itself is quite a chunky piece of work, because we've decided, in the spirit of championing individuality, that we're going for, we're ditching CVs, and we're going for a fully blind pre-interview process, and to try and make it as meritocratic as possible. And that in itself is even pushing Rocco and our recruitment partners right to the edge of innovation on their side. So yeah, it's not easy, but we think it's worth spending that extra time to hire slow and bring in the best people. So that then feeds into operations, things like engineering, everything that we did to get to that funding round and get our product out there and get 10,000 people, early adopters using it. It's still not the perfect setup. So in order to scale, we're having to really think about security, our infrastructure, our products, the systems that we use. They're all getting a massive upgrade. And I can imagine that as we go through this growth phase, once we've hired the right people and we start executing our roadmap in all the various disciplines, in engineering, product, marketing, operations, finance, whatever it might be, we're going to have growing pains, and we're going to have to react to those. And then we'll get to the next stage of funding, and there'll be that next growth spurt. So yeah, a lot going on.
It's quite refreshing to hear, actually, because, you know, often you'll get, this is not a slight, and the reason I'm smiling is because it sounds like it's more of growth readiness phase. So you're kind of doing all of the operational stuff that, you know, some startups and some fintechs maybe leave a little bit too late. So once you get to 100 people or 150 people, you know, I've seen some cases where at that point they go, right, let's look at our hiring process and let's look at our cultural values. And often it's a mammoth task to do it with 150 people. With 3 people or 4 people or 5 people, it's actually a lot easier, and it's probably the right time to think about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And but it's quite difficult because even internally, there's still pressures like going, okay, from the engineering side, from the product side, we need to get going. We've got this this money in the bank, and you know, then that's that kind of collaborative friction and getting alignment, because operationally we're saying, well, yes, we need to hire and we need to get building, but whilst we're in this kind of luxury period of not quite having massive external pressures to deliver against certain metrics, we might as well take this unique time where we've got the funds in the bank, we know that we're there, but to spend it wisely and invest in these foundations. And it's definitely pre-growth readiness, but I think it's also about keeping that period as short as possible and executing that as quickly as possible. So that's the balance that we're trying to strike at the moment.
I was going to say the balance is probably a word I've used 150 times in different meetings, because you don't want to lose the momentum of that crowdfunding and the buzz that's been generated off the back of it, but also you want to, you know, make sure you're as lean as possible, you're using the right tech. You know, again, you said looking at tech stack, looking at security, like operational readiness, but you know, people readiness as well. So
yeah,
I suppose readiness and balance are the words of this phase for you guys, right?
yeah, absolutely. And I think you touched on 2 really interesting points there. So we came out of the crowdfunding and we were super stoked to get over 1,200 retail investors just going, yeah, okay, we'll come along for the Lumio journey. That when we started out on that journey, we never would have imagined that. We never would have imagined raising over £1 million in around 2 weeks. And to get there, we realized that we needed to keep that momentum going, which is why we've also invested heavily into building a community page on Circle, through which we've been able to gradually, again, we're doing it on an iterative basis, bringing on about 200 of the investors and just testing out how that community works, because we've seen people like Monzo and Free Trade and Chip do it so well, but they've also made mistakes along the way. So we're trying to learn from those things. We're much earlier on in that journey, but we're trying to learn from their best practices and gradually build this amazing community that of stakeholders that will ultimately drive the business forward. And then from the security perspective, that is an infrastructure perspective, that's a really tough one, because you know, I'm a lawyer by background. I see risk and try to run a mile from it, generally speaking. But you know, trying to upgrade all of those aspects, there's what we would like to have, and there's also what we can achieve at this moment in time. So it's learning how to be masters in your kind of respective fields, but then find that balance of what gets us to that next stage. And that's a journey that we're going through at the moment.
Nice. So I think you've touched on, I would say, some of the challenges of the growth phase. What are you enjoying most about this part? I could probably take a guess off the back of what you said about crowdfunding.
Go on, then.
Is
What's your guess?
Is it the unbelievable feedback and the overfunding and the number of customers that love the proposition?
Yeah, it's a bit of a double-edged sword, you know. It's phenomenal when people back you and you kind of feel that validation after years of work that I'm sure many a founder will kind of identify with, you know, working in your silo, and then finally when you start putting it out there and after being shot down, plenty of times by investors and others, when you're right in those early stages and it's still basically a good idea without execution. There's plenty of opinions, and so to start getting that early validation, it's still small validation. And there's still a lot of work to do to get to product market fit, but it does kind of, it made me feel emotional when we were sat there as a team and we're just reflecting on, holy, we've just closed this. This is, we're so proud as a team. So and to get those comments on the message boards and the fora is really cool. There are also people who really got stuck into us and used it as a place to just really try and undermine us. And I think that'll be a common thing for most people that put themselves out there. So that was also a challenge, is how to remain polite but also constructive, and demonstrate that we've got what it takes to keep on growing the business, because we're always going to face challenges and there's always going to be people who try and cut you down. So it's like, okay, how do you deal with those circumstances in a positive, constructive way?
Yeah. So what were some of the, like, without getting to major specifics, what was?
One that sticks out was someone, I think they were known as on Crowdcube, they have pseudonyms, so the Welshman. And
I was going to say, it's not Noob Master 69, is it?
No. But it was basically saying, oh, I've had a look at the profiles of the founders, and I have serious doubts about their ability to grow this business, because nothing stacks up. They've all had short-term positions at various insignificant businesses, and I really don't think that they're capable of growing this. And I was sat there thinking, okay, well, I've been recognized internationally as a lawyer, as a leading lawyer in fintech, and I've been with a few global firms, and have had like one startup failure under my belt, and and Charlie and Tom are quite similar. So I was like, wow, okay. And then you kind of go, okay, but this is what our LinkedIn profiles say, and they go, oh, your LinkedIn profiles don't match up with what you've got in the deck. And I was like, literally, you just putting like photos of each one, going, but they are. and so what's phenomenal about that is then the way that people who do believe in you then jump to your rescue, and then start just jumping on the boards, going, no, it's exactly what it says on the tin, and if you don't like them, then don't invest in them. But it seems like you're just trying to troll them, and that was our first experience of that kind of level of like, no, it just keeps on going at it. So that's one that sticks out.
Yeah, I suppose it's difficult to not take it almost personally, because it's, again, you've worked on it for a while now, and it's your baby, right? So, and it's the classic phrase of, no one wants to hear that their baby's ugly.
Well, our baby is ugly. So like, our baby is in our loving founder parental eyes is perfectly formed to go into something that will be, hopefully a productive contributor to society, and have loads of stakeholder friends and form meaningful relationships. I mean, I could probably take that analogy so many places, but at the moment it is ugly in the sense of we don't have product market fit quite yet. We still need to build up those customer numbers. We still need to go through that product marketing kind of cycle to really take the learnings and really see where we can deliver value. So in that sense, our baby Lumio is still a little bit ugly, but that's not to say that we can't deliver on promise down the line.
Yeah. maybe the baby analogy is a bit too soon. Maybe it's more like, you know, the angsty teen who's going through that hormonal growth phase. You know, you're not sure what, you know, where it's going to go yet, whether they're going to be really tall, short, are they going to, you know,
Yeah.
they're just going through that little spurt.
It'd be interesting to get Charlie, my co-founder and CEO, on here, who's just had a baby. Actually, the day before we went live on crowdfunding, or a couple of days before, his son Freddie was born, and then it was like, right, our main fundraiser and face of the business is going to, you know, goes down to culture and values. It was like, yeah, you need to take time off. I mean, this is your first baby. This is time you're never going to go back and get back. So that is also, I think, testament to there is still life behind all of everything that we're doing. And that's why, in terms of foundations, what we're trying to do is put the people first, because if we put our people first, we'll be able to deliver. It might not be the most you know, Silicon Valley way of looking at things, but it's our approach.
Yeah, I mean, it's sometimes it's difficult to follow a set prescriptive process, but it's, you know, it's about the learnings, it's about the growings, and it's about putting things in place to act and make changes off the back of those things.
Yeah.
So I think from a product perspective, I think the one question I've got is, when do you go, like, the balance at the moment is more towards that growth readiness, and I suppose Tom is probably chomping at the bit, looking at things like the roadmap and going, well, this is the feedback we're getting. When do you, you know, shift the balance back? I think the analogy I've used before is, you know that the train is coming towards a platform. You know, it's not stopping. People are getting on, people are getting off while it's still moving a little bit. When do you, you know, refuel, get back into that, you know, that product
Full steam ahead.
feedback loop, analyzing that stuff? You know, your foundation is there, your stability is there now. When are you gonna, are you using any measures? Or are you just trying to like feel when it's right?
Yeah. So the answer is yesterday. So we actually tried to hire a growth product manager in the last hiring round last year, and that didn't quite work out because we didn't quite find the person who had the product manager and growth marketing skills and that ability to kind of feedback between the teams. Quite a data-driven role, but also with marketing nous. And so that's what we're putting that position out again, and to bring that person in who fills that gap and is able to look at the data, look at the users, the customers, and say, right, okay, this is what they're expecting. This is where we're deriving a lot of value, and this is the message that we need to send out in order to drive that product growth flywheel. And yeah, Tom, my co-founder and chief product officer, is really chomping at the bit to, and as well as Charlie, who's responsible for marketing. Both of them really want to get that person in, but they also know that we didn't succeed last time, so we need to shift things a little bit. We need to take our time to get that person in. So I think the answer to your question is, when do you start going full steam ahead? When do you shift properly from growth readiness into growth, is when we get that person in, as well as the 2 engineers that we're now bringing in-house, and the operations manager. So when those people are in place, then we'll start pushing ahead. But from a product and marketing side, of course, in the meantime, we're refining our processes. We're with our CTO, who joined us before the crowdfunding campaign, starting to take over more of the engineering side. It's freeing up Tom to really focus more on the product side. And yeah, with our marketing exec Andrea stepping up massively through the crowdfunding campaign, massive, step up, hopefully maybe in time towards that head of growth role. Just everyone's starting to level up, and we've rationalized our marketing stack. And so all of this again probably comes back into the readiness phase, so that we've then got something for a growth product manager to come in and hopefully not just go, right, that's rubbish. Or if they do and they deliver later on, then that's fine. But to come in and just accelerate us from this position.
Yeah, again, it's really refreshing to hear that there's some honest, it's a reflection readiness, like looking at yourselves. Okay, what can we improve? What can we stabilize? What is great, and what should we just like double down on the greatness of? Before, because again, crowdfunding is a very it's almost pivotal, especially from a consumer's perspective, because they see the money go in, you complete on Crowdcube, and you look at the company, you're like, well, where's the update? What are you like? Where's the change? I want to see something. So it's kind of good to see that. Okay, well, that changes. It's all internal change. The product will stay as it is for a couple of months. You're not going to see 100 more bank connections and access to crypto accounts. You're going to see more stability, like a bit more hiring internally, and then that ripple effect will happen maybe 3 months, 4 months, 5 months out.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right, because in the lead up to the crowdfunding campaign, from a product side, we were just getting everything ready. So new partnerships, bringing out the payments function, increasing the marketplace. So lots of product readiness and product development went in and got pushed super hard before and through the crowdfunding process. And what that then means is we continue talking to our community, and our updates still go out regularly, just saying, okay, well, here's where we are on product. Here's some new partnerships that we have in the pipeline that are hopefully coming. Here's some amazing feedback that we've had from our customers in terms of just getting stuck in and starting to take the app apart. And we're making all of that visible and transparent, and just trying to bring our customers and investors on that journey. And in the same way, we recently published a blog on diversity and what diversity means to Lumio. And we're just trying to help investors and early customers understand where we are in the journey, that we're definitely not done yet, and just trying to get them in as valuable stakeholders that can keep on pushing us, because we're 4 in the leadership team and a small internal team of 6 with another 4 outsourced, and so we're still really small, and we've got our own viewpoints. And by opening it up a little bit to the crowd, we're getting so much feedback from people on what they like, what they don't like, what they saw work with maybe adjacent market apps like a Free Trade or a Revolut or something else. And that then gives us signals as to where we should maybe focus our roadmaps. So that's really useful.
Awesome. So finally, if you were going to give a founder entering this growth phase or even pre-growth phase a bit of advice, what would it be?
I think it would be just take a step back and assess before you go and splash the cash. Evaluate where your strengths are, evaluate your weaknesses. The fundraising journey is kind of done for a little bit. So just take that time to really look at the whole situation and critically analyze what you really, really need for your business in order to take it forwards to where you want it to be, because there'll be all kinds of different opinions on
what the typical trajectory is and what the typical execution is. And all of those things may be valid, but there'll be nuances within your business that, unless you critically like just pause for a sec and analyze it, you might just go off in the wrong direction, and then you get into expensive change management consultants coming in and having to to retrofit everything. So yeah, that would be my one piece of advice. But who knows? I mean, this is the first time that we're going through, so I might say something completely different in a year's time.
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot for your time. Anyone who hasn't checked out Lumio, please go check them out. It's a great little proposition. Design's awesome. And pay, yeah, you've touched on payments, initiated payments now. So yeah, check it out. I'll also attach the link to the blog, because I think the blog is really, really insightful. One of the best ones about diversity in hiring I've seen in a long, long time. So check it out. Thank you and goodbye.
Thanks, Jazz. Bye.
Cheers.